Right, today we're talking about Growth Strategy 101. This is going to be a masterclass on how to grow things, specifically internet businesses, but this applies to pretty much every type of business, whether you're B2B SaaS, agency, D2C, e-commerce, consumer brand. This framework that we're going to talk about in terms of growth strategy applies to literally every single business in the sense that if you're selling a good or a service, which is the definition of a business, then this applies. So let's jump straight into it. So step one of growth strategy is having a mindset shift. And this mindset shift is going to enable you to think about growth over a lot longer time horizon. See, when people think about growth, they usually think of a specific tactic or channel or method or growth hack. It's usually about the nitty-gritties of something that you would use to grow specifically in terms of strategy, but not the broader strategy that those individual hacks make up constituent parts of. So the first thing to think about is whenever you're seeing a hyper-growth company or a company which is scaling loads, or you've worked in a company where it's hyper-scaling, you're viewing that company at a specific point in time, or you might have been working for them or working with them for a specific period of time where you haven't actually seen the growth strategy foundations they've laid maybe 6 months ago, maybe a year ago, maybe 5 years ago. If you're talking about legacy brands, then these could be growth strategies that they've put in place 40 years ago. So step one is to literally just play a long-term game with this. Channels change, traffic sources change, cost per leads rise over time. There's a couple of certains in life. CACs always go up, and what remains the same is if you want to grow something consistently over time, then you need to think about strategy in the right way, which is what we're going to jump into now. So step two is knowing your numbers. Knowing your numbers is vital. If you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. It's really that simple. I like to keep things really, really easy and straightforward. So we can think about it in terms of macro numbers, micro numbers. Macro numbers are your classic business metrics that you should be tracking. Really want to zoom out, Management Consultant 101. That is revenue minus cost equals profit. R minus C equals P. That is business 101. I don't know why more people don't talk about it. If you're a startup, then all you care about is R. If you're an established business, private equity business, profitable business, bootstrap business, then all you care about is P. You're either revenue or profit, and that is generally your core metric. Now, there might be a case where you choose a different primary metric, macro metric, or what in some startups is sometimes called a North Star metric. Only do this when you're really, really certain that you have the correct metric. And I would usually always say take revenue. If you're really on top of your costs and your margins, then you can use profit. Or if you're a bootstrap business where revenue is vanity, profit is sanity, then you can potentially ignore revenue, or not ignore revenue, but it's just not going to be your key metric. Focus on profit. But there are some cases where you might have a North Star metric, which isn't either revenue or profit. Now, the only case this is where it applies, where you basically have a holistic almost world view of your business and how that applies to creating value in the world. So let me give you a specific example. So Airbnb don't have a North Star metric, which is revenue or profit. They look at number of bookings per day because they know number of bookings per day is, as a North Star metric, is something that most closely aligns to their business goal, which is ultimately revenue. But if you think about it, what makes up revenue for Airbnb? It's effectively average night per stay, which largely is not up to them. It's either set by the hosts, or it's set dynamically, or it's set by the market, or it's set by Airbnb as a sector in relation to hotel prices. So the average price per night is largely outside their control. They can't control whether someone signs up that has a 1-bedroom flat or a 5-bedroom house, which massively goes into the average price per night. On a macro level, their average price per night on any given month would probably be relatively constant over time. So they just take that almost as a given. And the thing that they can control is number of bookings per day. So if you think about it, their revenue is just a function of the number of bookings they have per day times by their average nightly rate on a macro level. Now, we're talking about Airbnb here, okay? So it's very, very slim chance that you're going to have a North Star metric where you know your business model so inside out that you're into the, say, 50 million plus revenue where you're tracking something which isn't revenue or profit. The larger takeaway here is to make sure your numbers. On a micro level, this is where you can get more creative and pick things which sort of build up into the individual macro goal that you're looking at. So let's just say revenue. Let's say you're a B2B SaaS company and you're looking at what makes up revenue. Leads is where you start. This is a leading indicator of how much revenue you're going to close, but it's more of a predictor rather than a causal factor. You could have 100 leads and you don't close a single thing. So leads aren't equal to revenue. Probably that the three metrics you're going to be tracking are number of leads per month, SQLs or MQLs, the average number of demos you're doing, and the average closes you're having. If you're a B2C company, it's probably going to be your CAC, your conversion rate on your site, and your average order value, your AOV. Every sort of business generally has a industry set standards of how you should think about the health of your business or your checks. But ultimately, we can't have any growth strategy unless you know what your macro North Star metric is and what your micro metrics are, which feed up into that are. And just don't pick anything which is going to be a bit of for vanity. Sometimes people say you've got an app and you're looking at number of installs. Well, number of installs, yeah, that might be one of your small micro metrics that you track in the first instance, or that maybe that just your media buyer tracks, but it's not the be all and end all of your actual company and your growth strategy more holistically. What's more important than installs? Registrations. What's more important than registrations? Well, it's daily active users. What's more important than daily active users? Depending on the app and the way people interact with it, whether it's a dating app, then monthly active or yearly active users probably isn't going to be as applicable, because the idea of your app is that if the objective of it is complete, then they won't use it anymore because they'll be off dating apps and in a relationship. Whereas with a gym tracking app, that might be that the more consistent you are with the gym, the better results you're going to see, the more likely you are to continue with it, and you create a cycle where not only is your end behavioral objective accomplished, but also your app usage and your revenue metrics aligned to your user intention. And pretty much you have a perfect business where everyone's winning. So that's what you want. But just don't pick something that's irrelevant to your actual goal, which is usually revenue or profit. Number of likes. Do not count the number of likes or the social media followers you have. Count the revenue that you collect or create through social. So step 3 is assessing product market fit and having product market fit and getting product market fit if you haven't got it, or scaling with product market fit once you do. Yeah, and without product market fit, you literally don't have a business. So what is product market fit? 2 areas, super simple. Let's say product and let's say market. Product is how much do people like the thing that you've got? Whether you're a B2C or B2B company, do people love your trainers? Do they love your supplements? Do they love your functional beverage? Do they love your new energy drink? B2B SaaS, are they using your product? Do they love it? Is that part of their tech stack? Is it integral to their internal workflows? Can they live without it? Do they love it more than anything? Or are you a reluctant part of the buying cycle? So basically, make a good product. The second part of it is market. So you could have a phenomenal product, but it depends on different market dynamics. Market dynamics, the fundamental easiest way to look at it is TAM, total addressable market. So how big is it? For instance, it's easier to sell gym apparel because there's quite a lot of gym goers, even if it's super competitive, than it is diamond axes, for instance. Now, that's not saying that you might not have a fantastic business selling diamond axes, but it's probably just not as large a market as it would be athleisure. An important thing to consider here is competition is not necessarily a bad thing. It depends on the industry again, but competition can mean that there's a lot of people doing phenomenally well in a given industry, so it's a sign to enter. Sometimes people think that they need something, new, or to change things radically to have a good business and to be able to grow in terms of their strategy. So they put themselves in a different adjacent field or something. But generally, if there's a lot of players in an established market, that means that you can win it too. And in that, we're aiming to have always a 10x better product. That's what everyone talks about in startups, 10x rule, etc., etc. But realistically, if you're in a huge industry where people are already buying something and they need the solution, then you can have a 2x better solution and you will still have a great business. So what is product market fit? So product market fit, how do you identify it? It's like a feeling. I think the easiest way to describe product market fit is not as a metric or not as a measure or not as a nice little colored chart. It's literally a feeling. Like your customers and your inbox and the way that your customers are interacting with your product will tell you. If you've had it, you'll know when you've got it. If you haven't had a feeling or you're wondering if you've got product market fit, then you probably haven't got it. It can be that simple, just using your gut as a litmus test. Now, there is a little weird middle ground where people like your product and you might be convincing yourself that you've got product market fit, and that is why you're looking at growth strategy and how to scale it. But some of the worst periods, but it can be terrible when you're trying to scale a business that is fine. It's just an all right business. you're going to spend years, if not decades of your life trying to scale something that's not quite right. So with product market fit, just be sure. And if you're having to wonder about it, then you probably haven't quite got it yet. That's not to say to change what you're doing in terms of industry or your business completely. That just means starting with tweaking what you've got and making it better. It can be that the industry you're in is perfect, but the product needs tweaking. It could be that you need a different product for the same users you've already got, but they're actually asking for something completely different. For instance, a real quick one can be going after business owners that do accountancy. I've seen people set up or Xero or QuickBooks apps for invoice chasing, and they found that when they actually speak to their users, yeah, invoice chasing is good, but what they actually want is, instead of to be chasing the customer, is to notify their internal teams that invoices are late. Tiny product tweak. Instead of emailing the customer that owes the invoice, you're emailing the person in your accounts department or the person that deals with invoicing internally in your app. But it's small tweaks listening to your customers in a given market can completely change the business. And yeah, just chase off that product market fit. Unfortunately, there's no real little tick box or metric or certificate you can get for it. You've just got to go with your gut, and you'll know when it's there. So step 4 is customer acquisition channels. Notice how this isn't the first thing. Growth strategy. We want to first think long term. We want to know our numbers and work out where we're going to get to. And then we are going to assess whether our product's any good. And then we're going to pick our acquisition channels, okay? So this is on the premise that you haven't skipped the rest of the video and you're looking at acquisition channels now after you know you're going after either revenue or profit. And we're going to talk into acquisition channels now. So what are acquisition channels? Acquisition channels are the way that you get customers, users, members, people to buy your goods or services. Real simple. Generally, customer acquisition often is sort of traffic. Traffic are just individual people sitting behind screens, usually buying things. So they're either on a desktop, a mobile, or a tablet, and they're buying things in the digital world. If you're in the physical world, you're selling more of a service like gardening or landscaping or something like that. They're still the individual people, but they're not behind screens. They're behind you as a person, or potentially behind a phone or a letter or hard mail. There's lots of different ways to do it. But customer acquisition, what you're looking for is something that you can predictably scale when you're looking at growth strategy. And now this is where it can be quite contentious, but generally a lot of people believe you can get from one channel to a 10 mil revenue. And £10 million revenue. So when I say a channel, that can be meta ads, so Facebook ads, Instagram ads, that could be Snapchat ads, that could be TikTok ads, that could be Google ads. Easiest way to break it down is inbound and outbound. Outbound, you're going out to people that you're marketing to. So think of traditional cold calling, cold emailing, potentially trade shows, depending on how you want to bracket it. Just to make a simplified worldview, you're going out to get business, you're door knocking. Inbound is you're getting people come to you. So that can be ads, is the classic. It can also be SEO, content marketing. So people are viewing your things either through Google or through organic social media, and they're coming to you. And yeah, so you're either going to be inbound or outbound. Generally, you want to pick one and absolutely nail it. I've made this mistake so many times. As soon as something's working or relatively working, or you're basically seeing some level of success, I just get excited and I add other channels and I add other things, and it's just not what you want to do. There's the best businesses that you see, and the best business that I've had are always one where we're just like a one channel business until we're at significant scale. Significant scale, that is, we say 10 million revenue, it might be 3 million or 5 million revenue for you, where you can start adding other things. But the idea is to basically not split your focus in terms of strategy on a given channel, because as we spoke about in step 1, the results compound. For any given effort unit you put into a channel, it improves over time. Now, there is a sort of given in marketing that CACs rise over time, but when we say rise, it's not by crazy amounts. It could be by single figure percentage points. It might be 10%, 20% or something, a quarter. But generally, it's not going to be huge changes so long as your LTV is keeping up with that and your acquisition model is accounting for that. So you want to pick one channel and absolutely nail it. I'm personally a big fan of ads. I like just paying the media companies to get me impressions and get me clicks. It's the most straightforward way. It's super scalable. If something's working, I change the budget from, £100 a day to £200 a day, £200 a day to £300 a day. And I just keep increasing the budget until it stops working. And then I go back and fix it. And then I keep upping the budget, and then it breaks, and then I go back and fix it. And life is simple because I know that you create new ads, you write new copy, and you can grow your business. There's other channels which are perfectly more suited to other industries. For instance, if you're a B2B SaaS company or an agency, realistically, you're probably going outbound. You can definitely generate significant business through inbound, but there's just something about the industries where there's a way of doing it. It's generally related to average contract values. So for instance, when we talk about CAC and LTV, an easy rule of thumb is if the lifetime value of a customer is over £5,000, that could potentially support or $6,500 could support an outside sales motion or slightly lower inbound sales motion. But generally, if your customer's not worth that much to you, then outbound sales aren't going to work. You're going to have to go inbound. That's why if you're D2C e-com, then you've got to go with ads, and you're going to have CACs which are around 10, 20, 30, 50, maybe up to £100 for a lower ticket consumer product. Whereas B2B SaaS, if you're making 25, 30K LTV per customer, then you're going to be happy spending 10K to acquire them. So make sure you pick one channel and make sure it's suited to you. Generally, the easiest way to pick this channel is to just look at what your top 3 competitors are doing. If they're doing something well and it's working for them and they've been doing it for over 6 months or potentially over 3 months, then you know that it's good. If they've been running Facebook ads for over 9 months, then the likelihood is unless they have a very, very funny C-suite or CMO or marketing team or something like that, they're working. If you see them launch, don't copy their ads which have been launched within the last 2 weeks or 3 weeks, so they're just testing them. See what they've been doing for a consistent amount of time. If they've had salespeople employed for 5 years, but they've only started running ads a year ago, and you're early in your journey, then you know that you've got 4 years of outbound sales before you potentially turn on ads. In the B2B large contract example, if you're D2C consumer, if you've got an app business, then it's pretty obvious that you're either running ads or you're doing organic content if you haven't got any media budget to do it. Just pick one channel and absolutely nail it. Even if you're thinking about channel or like a sort of theme of marketing more broadly, say short form content, still pick a channel. Like you can, if your goal with your app is to say get to 25k MRR a month or with 100,000 installs or something like that, you can just do that through Instagram Reels, or you can just do that through TikTok. Your goal isn't to create a 200 million pound company. That's where we get to phase 2 of growth strategy, where we're like going omni-channel. We're not putting all our eggs in one basket, but we don't need that channel mix at this point. This is about getting going, scaling up to that first 10 mil and just getting something off the ground. So just literally pick the individual channel. Don't pick short form, because as soon as you start trying to do TikTok and Instagram Reels at the same time, jack of all trades, master of none. Don't get me wrong, if you're a wizard and that's the only thing you're doing, you're not building a product, you're not fundraising, you're not talking to customers, if you're not doing anything else, then yeah, maybe you can manage 2 channels to get to your milestone. But would you not prefer to just have one? Like I'm just a big believer, and I would actually prefer to have less channels. I know it's exciting, and I forget that when I'm not looking in hindsight with rose-tinted glasses. It seems always better to have more channels, but actually what I want is one channel that works and is predictable, and I can just focus on that one thing, be really, really good at it, and scale that up rather than adding in loads of different things. So there we have it. Growth Strategy 101. Think long term, change your mindset about growth. Plant seeds today that you're going to be reaping the rewards of in 3, 5, 10 years time within your business. If you can't think that long about your business, then this business isn't the right one for you. Go and find something you want to play long term. Next thing, you want to know your numbers. If you don't know your numbers, you don't know your business. Real simple, applies to every business in the world. Just look at your CAC to LTV ratio. CAC, customer acquisition cost, LTV, lifetime value. Look at how they relate. Aim for a 3-to-1. You want to pay £10 for £30 of revenue in D2C. For B2B SaaS or an agency, you want to pay 5k CAC for 15k revenue. They're just lower volume / high volume / high ticket businesses. Generally, we're all trying to do the same thing. We're trying to have our revenue exceed our costs and hopefully end up with a bit of profit. Unless you're a venture-backed startup, which then I just said the swear word P, which is the P word, which we can't talk about. So just go after revenue. And then finally, just pick one channel that you're going to scale until you reach significant scale on that channel. And that is Growth Strategy 101. Super, super simple. But that's the point, right? It's not meant to be complicated. There's no one little quick hack that's going to change everything for your business. There's no short form content is the best way to scale your SaaS business in 2024, or you're leaving £3 million a year on the table if you're not on TikTok Shop within the next 30 seconds. All those different ways that people talk about individual building blocks of customer acquisition channels. Think long term, set a goal, know your numbers, Pick one channel that's got scale in it and is sustainable and just go for it. See you guys soon.